Now, yesterday I sent you guys. Did anybody look at the information that I sent you yesterday from about the elections? Yeah, there's a lot of good information, and we're going to look at that. And several sites have these trackers, and I like the one on the New York Times just because I feel it's like a little more interactive. Um, but they've got like right now. Let me minimize this a little bit. You see the electoral college count, electoral vote count, and you need 270 electoral votes in order to win the presidency. And right now they've got Biden at 253, Trump at 214, and there are 6 states that are still in play. Alaska is going to go for Trump. They're just really slow out there, and they're like 5 hours behind everybody. So yeah, Alaska. But anyway, getting to 270 is going to be, it's possible for either candidate, but it's going to be more difficult for Trump. Okay, and we'll tell you why some of these states still haven't been called. Let's look at over here at Pennsylvania first. Okay, and we'll show you this. Now, I love this because they do allow you to zoom in, and you look at here's the data they have so far, and this is why they haven't called it. Like this will show you a couple things. Like first of all, what areas tend to be going for Trump right now? The rural areas, okay? And those rural areas, it's easy. Like you look at, say, like here's what's called Potter County, all right? And they've got almost all their votes in, more than 98% of the votes recorded, or excuse me, are turned in. And so overall, they've got maybe 10,000 votes. In the grand scheme of things, counting 10,000 votes is not that big a deal, all right? But if you go over here to Philadelphia County, where they only have about 81% of the votes in, and they've already counted almost 600,000 votes, you're looking at 750 to 800,000 votes total, and people want to get them turned around pretty fast. Now, also, they're dealing with mail-in ballots. Okay, here's what people forget: for the last 2 months, Donald Trump has told his people and told everybody, don't vote by mail in voting. I don't trust it. All right. So all the Republicans, at least most of the Republicans, show up on election day. Whereas if you did a mail in ballot, those tended to be more likely to vote for Biden. And those votes are still coming in because all they had to do is be postmarked by election day. So let's say, like, for example, Jesse over here turns in his ballot to the post office and they postmark it for November 3rd election day. It might take them a day or two to deliver that to the voting headquarters. And so they're getting these votes in, and we're talking tens of thousands of votes that are mail in ballots that they have to go through, scan for every single office, not just president. All right. So they're still working through those, and they don't have all of those yet. And those are more prone to be these urban areas. And you can see that Allegheny County, where Pittsburgh is, they've got the same issue, although they've got more votes counted than Philadelphia County. And so right now, if you look at the state as a whole for Pennsylvania, it's still leaning towards Trump, and he might win this state. Okay, but it's not out of the question that Joe Biden would win Pennsylvania either. All right, so right now that's why they haven't called it. Okay, something you'll see too in terms of the overall electoral math here. Trump has to win Pennsylvania. Okay, he can get away with not winning some other ones, but if Biden wins Pennsylvania, that puts him over 270, and that means that he's toast. All right. The most likely scenario that I see, like right now, Nevada and Arizona, the data says that they're going to go with Biden, and these states are all leaning towards Trump right now, but they're still counting mail-in ballots. If Nevada and Arizona go to Biden, he would have exactly 270 electoral votes, and that would leave Trump with 268. Talk about a razor thin margin. Yeek. All right. Now, you look at these counties, and like Nevada's interesting too. They're still counting ballots, and Nevada is basically three main cities: Las Vegas, Reno, and Carson City. And then the rest of it is just like giant desert. And you can see the more rural areas, they're going more for Trump. Same thing's true in almost every state. Right? Let's take a look, for example, at West Virginia. You beautiful red dot, you. What do you notice about every single county? They're all red. Not a single county went for Biden. Okay. Now, that's interesting for a number of reasons, but let's look at this. You do notice the areas that are not dark red. Why are they like more prone to voting for Joe Biden? Why is Kanawha County more likely? What is it? Cities. Charleston is there, and it's the biggest city in the state. Same thing with Cabell County and Huntington. Also, what's in Huntington and Cabell County that would make a difference to make it more liberal? Where's a place of a lot of liberals congregate in Huntington? Marshall University. Who said that? Thumbs up for you. Monongalia County. What's up there? WVU. And you're talking about a lot of people who live in that area. Wheeling, to an extent, it's still largely, and look, even these places, like you look at Kanawha County, and it's still largely Trump territory. Okay. West Virginia, heavy on Trump. What is it? Yeah. You go out to the Midwest, and a lot of these places are definitely, like you look in the Midwest and Wyoming, they're almost 70% for Donald Trump, right? Yeah, there was one county out there. I don't know what's in Teton County, but it is not exactly friendly to Trump. But everywhere else pretty much is, right? That could be where your universities are. But you can see a lot of these places are, like they're going 80. Sometimes I saw a couple that were like 90% for Trump. And there are some, like if you go to California and look, California's got some places that are very heavy for Biden, right? So, and hang on, I'll show you the biggest one I've seen so far. If you go over here to Maryland, particularly Baltimore County, 88% for Biden. Like, man, that's pretty insane. That's a lot of people for one particular neighborhood. Now, those counties are obviously leaning towards certain people, and that's all well and good. You see the tracking on this, and every state's like this too. Now, to address some of the other issues that people brought up, like Mr. Scalise, some of these states I'm worried. I've seen allegations of voter fraud, like Wisconsin, okay, land of a lot of cheese, right? You look at the overall vote totals, and right now, Biden's ahead by about 20,000 votes, all right? And same pattern here, rural versus urban areas going one way or the other. But in Wisconsin, one of the things I think is really beneficial is the fact that if you finish less than, like if the margin of victory for a candidate is less than 1%, you can ask for a recount. And so Trump's team said, look, when they certify the results, we plan on asking for a recount. And they're well within their rights to do that. There's nothing wrong with asking for a recount and saying, count the ballots again. Because it's that close, you want to be sure. And one of the reasons the reporting is so slow, and that, like, for example, Wisconsin didn't get called till yesterday, and they're looking at it, these people take their jobs very seriously because when you vote, they want you to be confident that your vote is counted and counted correctly. I would be really annoyed if my votes were counted for somebody other than the candidate in which I could do that. Plus, what does it do to the likelihood of voter turnout if people don't feel confident in that their ballot's counted correctly? It's going to lower it, okay? It's going to lower it, and people are really concerned, okay? Voter fraud is unlikely, I think, for a lot of reasons, one of which is the penalty for voter fraud is so severe that people aren't willing to risk it because they know that the odds of getting away with it and making a difference in the outcome of the election usually pretty low. So they're like, why bother risking it? Plus, you can always recount to see if there are any glitches. Voting machines here in West Virginia, they are digitally done, but they also have the paper ballots, which are there too. So there's always a paper trail. So if there's any question about that, like now, they've used different systems over the time, but now they have these long cards. You put them in the ballot machine, you make your selections, it prints your ballot out, and then they put it into a machine which logs all that, and it keeps the paper copy as well. Other states use different means, but they're all similar. Now, they also have been tracking the popular vote overall. 72 million votes for Biden nationwide and 68 million votes for Trump. Now, something that's really concerning here, too. If the race goes the way that the data is suggesting and Biden wins, he's going to get about 51% of the vote, and Trump will get close to 48, 49%. Why is that a little bit of a concern? What is it? It's very close. And basically, what have half the people said about the guy that wins the election? They don't want him to win. No matter who wins this race, whether it's Trump or Biden, you got half the people are going to be upset. And people are like, there's still a sense of divisiveness in the country. And something else that's important too, Democrats have underperformed in this election. considering the things that Trump has said and done, like any other, like for example, if Trump had to run against Obama, like this would not even be close. Okay. And there's a number of reasons for that. But Democrats secretly have to be a little bit disappointed because not only that, that's not the only thing on the line. House and Senate races. In the House of Representatives, right now, Democrats have won 209 seats and Republicans have won 190. But Republicans have a net gain of they're up 6 seats from last time, and they're still putting out numbers or counting ballots for 36 different seats. And it's clear that Democrats are probably going to keep a majority, but they won't have as big a majority as they did in the past. All right. And for Democrats, like you got to feel a little bit bummed about that. Right. Then you look at the Senate. They were trying to flip control of the Senate. And this one's a little bit closer. Democrats have gained a little bit, but they did lose 1 seat, but they've gained 2 at the moment, so they're +1 on there. 4 Senate seats still to be like they're still hashing out the results, and we'll look at that in a minute too. And who controls the Senate will be really important because if Biden wins the presidency, Democrats win the House. Democrats want the Senate as well so they can pass laws that they think will be beneficial to the country. You can see that here in Georgia, the race is still close, but it looks like this guy, David Perdue, is going to win, but they don't feel comfortable calling it official yet. North Carolina, a real tight race. And this is the one, Cal Cunningham was the Democrat who was up like 8 points until it was revealed that he was having an affair and sexting some woman that was not his wife. Oops. All right. And then, believe me, right now, Democrats are really mad at him because they thought like Tom Tillis has been around for forever and they thought they were getting rid of him. And it turns out not so fast. Alaska, they've got a Senate race there and they're still slow counting the votes because getting in the ballots from everywhere in Alaska, it's the biggest state by far. This doesn't really do it justice. Like literally the geographic size is like Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado, and New Mexico. So getting all the votes sent in can be difficult. Plus, they're like 5 hours behind us, so they're a little slow on everything. All right. But those Senate races to be decided, you got 1, 2, 3, and Georgia has a special election that they're going to have to do as well. Georgia's other Senate seat, which is up for grabs right here, they're going to have a runoff because nobody got, like their law says that if nobody gets a majority of the votes, then they have to have a runoff between the top two. And you can see that there were 2 Republicans vying for this seat. And what's going to happen now, those two, Raphael Warnock and Kelly Loeffler, they are going to they're going to have a runoff in that state, and the Republicans probably going to win. Still up in the air, but we'll see how that goes. So right now you're seeing some changes, and Democrats unlikely to flip the Senate, but you know what? We'll have to find out in the not too distant future. But Democrats have underperformed in this election. Now I want to show you also exit poll data because this is going to reveal a good bit about why people voted the way they did. And they talked to a lot of people nationwide, and they ask you a bunch of questions as you leave the polls. And look at this, male or female. 53% of people who voted were approximately were women, right? And remember, why are women coming out to vote more than men? They feel like number one, they have more at stake. What do you mean they have more at stake? What do you feel like you got at stake? You're like, that Supreme Court justice is probably coming from my birth control. All right. Beyond that, what do we know that women have not always had access to? Voting rights. It's been 100 years since women got the right to vote. And because of that, they appreciate it more. If you have gone without something and you know that you had to fight to get it, you appreciate it more than somebody who's never had to go without it. And that's nothing against men, but it's like we always had that right to vote. All right, now look at this too. Male voters, pretty evenly split between Trump and Biden. Female voters, on the other hand, strongly going for Biden. Right? This is also the most racially diverse electorate that has ever come out to vote. 65% of the people are white, but that means 35% are people of color, right? And that's a big deal. Notice, though, white people breaking towards Trump largely, but Black, Hispanic, Asians largely leaning towards Biden. Age groups, okay? Look at the age categories as they go up. What happens is each age category until you get to 65 and over? What do you think is likely to happen? Who do you think comes out to vote more, old people or young people? Really? What is this data telling you? The old people come out to vote more often. Your age group, the number's actually up from last election, and I'm glad young people are coming out, but more of you have to get out to vote. Okay? That's why young people's issues get ignored a lot, right? Because you don't come out to vote, right? Old people, and look, this number's actually down for the 65 and older crowd. It always dips a little bit from this age to this age, but that's because people are infirm and they can't always get out. But what do you think kept people from voting this time? COVID. A lot of old people are like, yeah, it's not worth risking it. Even, and old people too. My uncle this past year, my great uncle was 90 something. And if you had told him to do a mail in ballot, if for him to do it, my dad would have had to somehow like walked him through every single step on how to do it because he's 95 and he was 95 and he was like, I don't want to learn how to do this. Do it for me or I'm not doing it. So that's where you're at. By the way, old people, the 65 and older crowd, they still came out to vote more than you guys did. Right? Why do older people come out to vote more often? They always think they're right. What is it? They think no. Oh my gosh, there's always that person who says they don't have anything to do. They're like, they're retired. What is it? They probably do know more. There's some truth to that. They're worried about the future. And look, old people have more to lose. What happens naturally as you get older in life? Do you build wealth or tend to lose wealth? You build wealth. Yeah. Yeah. Health you lose, wealth you gain. It's a trade-off in life. All right. When you're young, you're healthy, but you're broke. And when you're old, it's the other way around. Look, you build wealth over time, okay? And ultimately you don't want to lose that. And so you're like, hey, I don't want anything changed. Especially what are the two programs that really benefit the 65 and older crowd? Medicare and what else? Nope, Medicaid's low income insurance. Social Security. You want to get seniors angry, threaten one of those two programs, and you will see people come out to vote in droves, virus or no virus. You never know. Now, look at this one. This is an interesting one here. Are you gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender? 7% of voters said yes. Right? Normally, you've got population wise, you probably got about 3 to 4% of the people who identify as LGBT. All right. Why are there more people saying yes to this question in the exit polls? They're coming out to vote more often. Why? Because why? They feel like they have more at stake. They're like, hey, with the conservative justices getting appointed to the Supreme Court, conservatives winning and other things, same-sex marriage could be at stake. There are pieces of legislation they want to recognize equality and civil rights. And so they feel like they got more stake. Now, what's really interesting and shocked me, out of those people who said, yes, I identify with the LGBT community, 28% of them voted with Trump. Does that surprise you? Why would they do that? Yeah, that was 12 years ago, man. Yeah, I know, but stick to this for a second. If today, in today's world, somebody who's LGBT, given the choice between Biden and Trump, why would they side with Trump? Yeah, don't worry about it. What is it? So why would they still but given the option between the two, both of them would look at a situation like if somebody's an LGBT voter, what's the primary issue for them? For a lot of LGBT community voters? Are they going to vote for somebody that they think is anti-LGBT? No. All right. And they look at Donald Trump and they're like, maybe he's not the nicest person in the world, but what's happening now is what do you know has happened in terms of acceptance of the LGBT community over the last 25 years? Has it become more accepting in society or less? More, okay? And what's happened is that because and I'm not saying that the world in every location here in the United States treats people the same regardless of their sexuality, but now what you see is that gay people have gained a measure of equality and certain things become more important to them. So, for example, let's say you're a really wealthy gay person who lives in the United States. Is it possible that your economic views are now more important? Maybe so. There's a group within the Republican Party, I swear I'm not making this up. They're called Log Cabin Republicans, and it's basically gay Republicans. They agree with the Republican Party on everything except their stance on same sex marriage and other LGBT issues. And you see that people are like, you know what? The stock market's good. My retirement plan is good. Maybe Trump's not responsible for all that, but don't mess with a good thing. Okay. It's kind of like athletes who are like, oh, these are my lucky socks. I got to wear them for every game. Every time I've worn them, I scored 40 points. Well, maybe that's not what's making you score 40 points a game, but do you mess with a good thing? No. All right. I am really surprised at that number, though. Yeah, pretty much. All right. Another one. Are you white evangelical or white born again Christian? Look, a significant percentage of voters, 27% of voters said, yeah, that's me. And that term evangelical or born again Christian gets confused in a lot of things because it could mean a lot of things, but that's really appealing to, I think, a lot of Southern Protestant, like Southern Baptist, or really typically conservative groups, Christian groups. And you can see those people are breaking towards the Trump side of things. Okay. Income, economic situation. This is one that is an interesting data too. Do you work full time for pay? Okay. 41% of people said no, they don't. Why is that number that high? Because you just looked at that like, what? What's the problem right now that's causing that number to be so high? COVID. That a lot of people who were working various jobs don't have jobs, and they feel like they have more at stake right now too. All right. Military voters, 15% of the people who voted said they were military voters, and this is fairly evenly split. I thought it would be a little more Trump, but Biden folk, Biden's got a lot of supporters in the military. First time voters, large number of people coming out. Okay, hang on here. Region wise, what part of the country do you live? East, Midwest, South, and West. The East and West, those tend to be your more liberal sections, and the Midwest and the South, those are more conservative, although it's more of a split than what I thought. Okay, hang on here. Gender and race or ethnic heritage. You can see that, look at this number, this percentage for black men. Black men supported Trump. 18% of black men said, yeah, I voted for Trump. And that is a little bit higher than what I thought. Latino men, higher numbers. Latino women, that's actually a higher number as well. But Latinos, we know in particular, people from the Hispanic community tend to be very Catholic, and the issue of abortion, definitely something that they think about, right? With black men, you notice in the last couple of weeks, Trump's tried really hard to tout black unemployment numbers, and not only black unemployment numbers, but have you seen he's got a huge list of celebrities that have been with him? 50 Cent, Ice Cube. He had a photo op with Lil Wayne last week. Who is Lil Pump? Oh, whatever. I'm not arguing about who's a greater rapper, but it's like, look, these are recognizable faces in the entire country, especially in the black community. And I think, so one way or another, that has an impact. Issues and attitudes. There's a couple of things in here too. You can see that which of these issues mattered most to you. You can see the economy is almost always the number one issue. Okay, and right now because of COVID hurting the economy, that matters a lot to people. You can see the people that said either crime and safety in the economy. Those are your Trump supporters. People who thought racial issues, pandemic, or healthcare. Those are your Biden people. All right. By the way, you're going to see some sharp divides. Look at this. Who would handle the coronavirus pandemic better? All right. 51% of the people said Biden would handle it better. Out of those people, 5% of them said, yeah, I'll still vote for Trump anyway. I know Trump would handle this worse than what Biden would have, but yeah, I'm still going with Trump. Meaning they're like, Corona, it's a secondary issue. All right. Which is more important? And this is where you see one of the clearest divides between Democrats and Republicans. 51% of the people said, hey, it's more important to contain corona now, even if it means hurting the economy. So, like, a lot of these people who are Biden supporters said, you know what, some things are more important than money and the economy. We're going to go with that, right? The other bulk of the people said, look, we got to rebuild the economy now, even if it means hurting the effort to contain corona. And those are Trump people. And right now, you see, like I said, a clear divide between the people. Some people are like, look, people are going to get corona, they're going to get sick, they're going to die. There's nothing we can do to stop that. We should try to minimize it and just rebuild the economy and be smart about it. And the other half is like, I don't think that's the best way to do it. Right? Does Donald Trump have the physical and mental health needed to serve effectively as president? More than half the people said no, he doesn't. And then 5% of the people went out and voted for him anyway, that said he's not mentally and physically healthy enough. What do those people think about Joe Biden? If they think Trump is not physically and mentally healthy enough to serve, but they'll still vote for him, what does that say their opinion of Biden is? It's worse. They're like, oh, I'm picking the lesser of two evils. Biden, same way. You got 46% of the people, almost half the people are like, yeah, Biden doesn't have the physical and mental health to do the job, but we're going to vote for him anyway. Why people do that? They're like, they think it's a bad choice, right? Was your vote for president for your candidate or against his opponent? I was surprised that this number was this low, but you see a lot of people who are like, I came out to vote against somebody, okay? And those are a lot of Biden folk. They're like, hey, I hate Trump so bad, I'm going to go out and vote against him, right? Plenty of people that said, I like Biden, but not quite the same, right? Hang on here. There's a few other things you want to see for sure. Trump reelected president, how would you feel? Half the people said concerned or scared. They're like, yeah, I'm concerned or scared, but I'm going to vote for him anyway because I would be more scared of a Biden presidency. Same thing for Biden, man. You look at him, about half the people say they'd be concerned or scared. Look, man, I'd be concerned no matter who's president. I don't know if I'm going to go scared. Okay? Black Lives Matter, obviously an issue. Criminal justice reform. Climate change. 66% of the people said they thought climate change was a real issue. Abortion. Look at this, man. Another clear divide between Democrats and Republicans. Legal versus illegal. Means we have a couple minutes left. All right. A few other factors I want you to see here in the exit polls. Okay. Favorable. Hillary voters. I'm just singing along. Why can't I find what I'm looking for? Sure. All right. Right. Yeah. What's so wrong with that? Imagine the question is why? What's so wrong with taxing the rich? If you make $10 million a year in this country, you're going to get taxed a lot of that. So you're probably going to end up paying $4 to $5 million in taxes. Do you really want to get taxed more? It's not about needing it. Why would anybody need to exercise their freedom of speech? Yeah, but here's the thing I would argue too. Let's say that I'm super rich, okay? Because it's not at all true. Uh, let's say I make $10 million a year and I invest in a lot of businesses. If I had more of my money, I could invest in more businesses, create more jobs, and actually generate more tax revenue that way because all those employees are paying income tax and all those businesses are paying taxes too. Yeah, you're penalizing people for being financially successful. Hold on. What did you say? All right. Your dad's in the construction business, right? Okay. And his dad owns a construction company. He says, look, if my taxes go up, it's not that I'm necessarily even a greedy person, but he says I have a business to run. And so therefore I have to devote more of the money, more of the profits from the company to covering taxes instead of sharing that with my employees because you want to pay them good salaries too. It's both. I'm sure there's some people like it's people who want that. Plus, it's the principle of it. Like, for example, do you want somebody to come in and just take half your stuff? Because it's your stuff. You earned it, right? So They're like, hey, it's the principle of it, because at that point, how much would be too much or too little? One last figure I want you to look at. When did you decide for whom to vote in the presidential election? 72% of people said they decided who to vote for before September. So they knew who they were going to vote for. And that's an even split right there. You had half those people going for Trump and half of them going for Biden. So basically, you had about 35% of Americans, 36% of people who said, I'm voting for Trump no matter what. And you got 36% of the people say, I'm voting Biden no matter what. All right. These people, they waited until the last week or so, but not many. Okay. Before the debates and everything else, they're like they already made up their mind. To be continued, guys. See you guys later.